So the most important thing to note about cleaning glass is depending on how long it has been since a piece of glass has been cleaned, it will really determine the kind of damage potentially that has been done to it. A window that hasn't been cleaned in a year versus a window that hasn't been cleaned in 10 years, they're often two completely separate surfaces. One is going to have some minor dirt and grime buildup. The other one could potentially have sun baked on dirt, pollen, and everything else that has been cooked by the sun's UV radiation. You could have hard water stains on there from sprinkler systems. And eventually, if left long enough, you're actually going to get etching in the glass, which is basically micro crevices from things bonding to the glass that leave permanent residue in there that's almost impossible to get out. So understanding the level of cleaning that you have to go to really depends on the type of glass, how long it hasn't been cleaned. There's a whole bunch of variables. The main things to understand are that for us, if we can come on there on scene and clean everything with just abrasive pads, soap and water, then typically that's what's called a standard or a first time cleaning. Doesn't require any additional chemicals or processes to get it done. Usually that's glass that hasn't been cleaned in about 1 to 2 years is whenever you're looking at that. Stage 1 etching or hard water deposits. That's where we start to see things like restoration come into service. So stage 1 is where you have the beginnings of either mineral buildup or chemical leaching from a composite or brick facade coming onto the glass. Typically, there is some level of damage that has been done to the glass at that point, but with specialized restoration techniques and chemicals, you can typically remove it and the glass is left looking probably about 75 to 90% of how it should. Whenever we get beyond that, and we're talking about glass that has had runoff on it for years, no cleaning, nothing's been done to it, you get into stage 2 etching or hard water deposits. That is where the actual chemicals either in the water or in the runoff have started to chemically change the composition of the glass. That can cause things like discoloration, micro ridges in the glass from that calcium deposit either bonding to the glass or the chemical bonding to the glass. That's a whole different process. We do have some things in place to remove them, but managing expectations is most important. Once you get to that level of damage, oftentimes you can never get the window looking the same way that it originally did. So you might be asking, what are the things that can actually really damage your glass over time? There's really kind of 3 main culprits that typically lead to damage permanently on your glass. Sprinkler systems are one of the biggest ones, especially here in Oklahoma. We have pretty hard water. So if you have a sprinkler system going on a window all the time, it is leaving mineral deposits every single time it runs over the glass. The next is going to be a leaching from either a precast or a brick facade. So this is like a concrete facade. The chemicals in that concrete and mortar over time get pulled out of it and will start to migrate onto the glass. And if it's not cleaned off in a timely fashion, it will start to bond to the glass. The last is going to be metal installations, whether this is screens on a building or, beams that haven't been treated properly. Rust and that metal deterioration will also start to get on the glass and do the same thing basically as that precast leaching, where you have different chemicals getting on there and it'll start to leach in over time. Like we said, glass is porous, so understanding that lets you understand how that stuff just sitting in there over time starts to really damage it. You get mineral deposits from the sprinkler system, you get oxidation from the metal and the leaching, and overall, if you're not cleaning it effectively and properly, over time it's just going to keep damaging your glass and damaging your glass, and if you don't get it taken care of quickly, it can be permanent. So what we want you to understand is really the limitations of commercial glass cleaning whenever we get into these situations that we just talked about. So if we come onto a building that hasn't been cleaned in, say, a year, that has really limited the amount of time that those chemicals or that dirt and debris has had to really lock itself to the glass. So it's much more likely that you can get basically a return to new whenever you're cleaning it, especially if you don't have to involve additional chemicals. As soon as we start talking longer than a year, especially in Oklahoma, we'll start to see damage on glass that cannot be removed. We do have certain techniques and restoration chemicals that can remove a lot of that buildup and even possibly polish the glass back to where it looks brand new. Just understand, sometimes you're kind of putting a Band-Aid over a wound, right? Even if it looks good, the composition of the glass still might be compromised. So just understand that, you know, if somebody comes up and they say, oh, we're going to clean your windows for you, and then they clean it that first time, they do a really good job, but there's permanent damage in the glass, there's not a whole lot else that can be done at that point. So what can you do to prevent this kind of damage? The most obvious answer is maintenance cleaning. So if you can get on a schedule to keep your glass clean and have it cleaned at specific intervals not to exceed a year, especially, you should be able to maintain a certain level of cleanliness and health for your glass. So even though a window might not look perfect, it's definitely healthier to get that glass cleaned, even if there has been some damage to it, just because it's going to prevent further damage down the road and eventual window replacement, which is about 10 times the cost of like a full-scale restoration cleaning. I said it earlier and I'll say it again, a clean window is a healthy window. Even if you do have damage to your window and it doesn't look perfect, it is always better to go ahead and address an issue before it becomes a bigger problem down the line. That's why for us, we would prefer for you to call us, ask questions, have us come out, because our job is to make your building look as good as possible. Sometimes that has to start with a really honest conversation about where you're at, what it's going to cost to fix it, and then how we can maintain it afterwards. What we would like you guys to do, since we've been talking about stains and damage to glass, is we would like you to email us pictures of windows that you have questions about the staining on. So send us a picture of your dirtiest window, something that hasn't been cleaned in years, and bring us out. Let's see if we can figure out how to get it fixed. Send those emails to salesok@squeegeesquad.com, or you can go to our website, fill out a contact form, or call us from there. Once again, thank you guys for watching this video today. Hope you give us a call soon. Thanks.